And then change up that profile 1. There we go. Fantastic. All right, Rhys, I'm going to count us in. We're going to be going now in 5, 4, 3.
Gummy Bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 5th, 2025. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, that state of play is happening later this afternoon. Should you get your hopes up? But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Rhys Elliot. Rhys, how are you doing? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so first of all, doing good. I'm a games analyst. I work for a company called Media. We survey gamers, forecast game revenues, and just basically use a load of data to figure out where the hell the games market is going and what players want. I also do some consulting to help games and entertainment companies also figure out what's going on with their strategy. And I've been an analyst for like 5 years now, in the industry for 8 years, and yeah, love it. I'm obsessed with games, really happy to be here. And also just want to say, Jeff, the way that you bridge the business games world and the consumer world is amazing, and it's just fantastic. Yeah, really appreciate what you do.
Yeah, no, just kind of, it happened that way, right? I think it's the show I wanted to make. There's gamers on one side, there's the people that make games on the other, and it feels like a lot of times never the two shall meet. Because they just have a different view on everything. I think each side's not too interested in what the other side's thinking a lot of times because they have to just kind of take care of their own business. Hey, can I afford this game? Hey, can we afford to make this game? It sounds like the same problem. It's very different. So kind of explaining one side to the other, and that goes both ways, has been something that I've really enjoyed doing. So thank you for noticing that. I really appreciate it. I got to wonder, been having conversations with people about the global video game market for 8 years. What are they like these days when you talk to people? We're going to talk about some of this in the news for sure, but just to kick us off here, what's it like these days?
Yeah, I mean, people are kind of worried because, survive till 25 was the kind of mantra that was thrown around. Yes. And now we're in 25 and like not a whole lot has changed, actually. So yeah, we will get into it later, but there's a little bit of turmoil, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are silver linings, but I think the market is kind of mature and it's not going to keep growing like it did in the COVID days,
Yep, absolutely. All right, Rhys, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with, a story about what you've been working on. Games market to grow by 4.6% in line with inflation, boosted by GTA 6. Double-digit growth is gone, though. This is from Amy Eastland at WCCF Tech. We talked a little bit about this when your report came out, but we're going to have a little bit deeper of a conversation about it right now. Is there music playing? Oh my God. Okay. All right. What? Here's what I think happened. I think my N64 is plugged in for Blight Club later today. And I see the Aver Media bus is just blasting music onto there. So we got it, everybody. Honestly, we just leave that playing the whole episode, huh? That'd be pretty good time. I forget what is it. I think it's just Mario 64. I think is what I have on there right now. I can't see it. Either way, all right, Rhys. This is your report from Media Research, right? That's how I say it. Give us the gist here. Give us kind of like what your findings were, how you're explaining it to game companies, and then how you would explain it to people who buy and play games.
Yeah, so basically the games market is growing. It's going to hit $203.2 billion globally this year, and that's up 4.6% year on year. But, and this is a big but, and I cannot lie, sorry, thank you, but global inflation is going to be around 4.4%. So that growth is like essentially flat. And like we mentioned earlier, Jeff, like survive till 25 has been a big thing. Everybody's thinking that the Switch 2, GTA 6 are going to re-spark a lot of the growth and end our woes. and they will add some like revenues to the market. Like the Switch 2 will help hardware grow 8.4%, but this is against a sharp decline last year of like 20%. And software will also grow, but like on the console side, Nintendo and Take-Two are going to be those big winners, right? Switch 2 will be an oasis for like third parties, but GTA 6 is just so massive that it'll actually have a negative impact on other games. And I'm going to say something that you probably won't hear from a lot of other analysts, but like esports, blockchain, the metaverse, Gen AI, none of them can or will meaningfully grow games market revenues. It's all a wild goose chase. Like the folks who kind of put that out there aren't taking accountability, and it's the people who create value in the industry that are suffering, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was that 10-year period leading into the pandemic, and then of course the pandemic exacerbated all of these very, like for the industry, very positive growth markers of all these new ideas that helped make a lot of money, and they were battle passes, microtransactions, free to play, mobile. All those things grew through that decade very, very fast, and I think that a lot of the people that make these business decisions in the industry see things like generative AI and NFT and blockchains as part of that, a link in that same chain. And it's like, well, no, these are sort of mutated ideas that don't come from that same place of, oh, this is something you could do with video games you can't do anywhere else. These are outside ideas trying to be applied to video games, and it doesn't have that same natural fit, right?
Exactly. And I think, there's a lot of desperation involved, right? Like, after the pandemic, everybody was at home, interest rates were low, engagement with games and spending skyrocketed. And a lot of executives then, right, they saw this as like an opportunity. They kind of used COVID as a red herring, honestly. They were also led to believe by certain people that like massive growth would continue. So they went on these hiring sprees. They greenlit a lot of risky projects, like, moving all their single player studios to live service games. And like the growth at all costs mindset was so dangerous here. And a lot of this stuff isn't panning out. And this is a word that you use a lot. And it's so true. It's a massive opportunity cost. It's right. It was so wasted, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, and that doesn't mean like when they realize that, or when they decide, hey, we missed our opportunity cost, or we spin it, we misspin it or whatever. It's not like, okay, now we just shift all that money somewhere else. They get more risk adverse in the wake of that, and they spend less money, and that kind of has a little bit of a spiral effect where it's like, okay, does anyone feel good about spending money? And now will we have games and new ideas ready to go in the next couple of years? So it kind of feels like, industry not just spinning its wheels, but sort of skidding a little bit, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like we're being a bit doom and gloom as well. Like there is a silver lining. Like some companies, like with this live service floundering, it's shown them, not EA, as Andrew Wilson's comments kind of showed recently around Dragon Age, sadly, that like a lot of companies are kind of realizing that they should have been playing to their strengths all along. Premium games, like where there are these opportunities for individual successes, right? Like the live service genre is like a zero-sum game. It's already had its winners. Like all those revenues are just going to shift between those big companies. But with premium games, like there's room for like, right now we've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We've got Monster Hunter like later this month that's going to like also do really well. And there's just more opportunity to grow. Like why would you want to, try and hit a home run and fail when you can just hit like a couple of singles and doubles and actually do well and actually do something sustainable, right? Like it's all a big gamble.
Okay, so my brain, when you talk that way, like I agree. I look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I do look at Capcom, and I think, okay, clearly we have people that understand that there is a market to appeal to make games that are pretty big and find a massive audience. I mean, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is absolutely an example of that, and it comes from a maybe a different side of the industry than an EA, right? A smaller studio, relatively speaking, out of Europe, a place where the labor is a little bit more affordable than in North America. So I think that kind of makes things like that make a little bit more sense. Same with like developers in Japan. But when we say, okay, so why would these bigger companies not want to like go after that? My brain jumped to, and this is going to sound weird, Luka Doncic. I can't say his last name, never could. Luka Doncic. That like looking into like why that trade happened, for people that don't know, he played for the Dallas Mavericks. He was NBA like on the first team NBA, one of the best players in the world, got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers from the Dallas Mavericks, and no one understood this deal, why this happened. It seemed like a bad deal for one side, the Dallas Mavericks trading away Luka. And everyone kind of agrees now it was done to save the billionaire owners of the Dallas Mavericks a lot of money because they were going to have to give him a supermax contract extension, and they weren't very interested in winning and putting out a good product. They were interested in using this thing to make a lot of money, and then now this thing's going to cost them a lot of money, so they're going to cut it free. And at the same time, the NBA would love to have someone like Luka in Los Angeles because the Lakers is the NBA, globally speaking. If you look at like NBA 2K, the number one team by far, even in states like Texas, like the number one team that people play as, the Lakers. So really what I'm getting at here is at a certain point, billionaires are making decisions about these very specific markets, whether it's like, hey, what basketball looks like or what video games look like, based on their whims. And it's kind of very disconnected from what the consumers are interested in. So I'm kind of getting to a point a little bit, at least right now. I think we're in a gully. We're in a valley with this stuff where it's really bad, where the enshittification has really come for everything. And there's sort of no rescuing these bigger companies from that way of thinking because they're too far gone in terms of being the playthings of billionaires. So I do look at, okay, what are the big corporations that do make this make sense? And of course it is companies like Capcom and Nintendo that aren't like stuck in this like Milton Friedman expansion at all cost style of capitalism. It is make good products style capitalism, which is like what we originally imagined the whole thing was going to be like. And you make good products, people want to buy it, and selfishly you make a lot of money. And there's only a handful of those, and not many in North America. So I think that the doom and gloom we always come back to is these traditional companies like Activision, EA, Ubisoft in Europe, feeling like they are so lost and so disconnected from what we want that there's sort of no rescuing them. I mean, is that still too doom and gloom for you?
No, I actually completely agree. And I hope like the reality might be different, that these big American companies kind of take note, right? Like we see with From Software, with Nintendo, with Capcom, they lay off their staff way less frequently than the American companies. And they keep that institutional knowledge that kind of is passed along from, the senior devs to the junior ones. And then, and these companies are so profitable because they can build on those ideas, right? Like Dark Souls led to Elden Ring and things like that. And it's the short-sighted nature of, let's be honest, capitalism is kind of really stifling innovation and progression in the industry. And I think like after the live service floundering, a lot of these companies are going to return to the drawing board a little bit and say, okay, so what's working for Nintendo? Why is From Software still doing so well? And I hope, and it's kind of what I tell my clients, and it's because they are like, actually, like you said, Jeff, they're focusing on the product rather than quarter to quarter kind of, gains and losses. That is important, and it's, impossible to avoid in capitalism.
Yep, we all do it.
But like, yeah, we have to, right? Like, but like there is a line, right? There is a middle ground where you can do both and not fire all your employees.
Yeah. So, okay. So survived to 25. Nothing's really changed that much. You mentioned GTA 6 Switch 2 come along. They definitely buoy Nintendo and Take-Two. That makes the overall industry look a little bit better, but maybe still at the expense of a lot of other companies. What sort of breaks the fever then? If it's not those two things, is it sort of those two things coming out and then in the wake, people are more excited about video games and the Switch 2's encouraging people to spend more on video games? Is that the hope?
Yeah, that's the hope. And like longer term, like GTA will lead some more people to kind of buy the new gen consoles, right? Because it's going to be exclusive to the new gen consoles at first. And usually when people buy new consoles, also including the Switch 2, they buy a few games there, right? And, the buzz does continue as well. But like to answer your question, I think longer term, like the industry needs, because the market is mature, the industry needs to stop focusing on make number go up in terms of revenues and focus a little bit more on profitability, and not via firing people, via making like shorter games with shorter dev cycles. Like, for example, the Assassin's Creed games, if they cut their length by 20%, I don't think anybody would notice. Yeah. And also, I think some people might actually be happy, right? Like, everybody's so busy, the attention economy is oversaturated. Like, games are competing with TikTok, with YouTube, with Netflix, not just, Activision versus EA. Like, a lot of people like to kind of think about it. So, like just make games a little shorter, a little bit more digestible. You'll cut down on the budget, you'll cut down on, the dev timelines, and it's just a little bit more sustainable. You also have more room to experiment. Like look at Astrobot, right? Yeah, like, and even Miles Morales, the game between Spider-Man 1 and 2, it was a lot smaller, but the reviews were just as good, and the people reviewing the game, like, they didn't pay for it. And what I'm getting at there is that Miles Morales was cheaper. So, like, it didn't affect the review score at all, right? That it was a lower price. And it just shows that these smaller stopgap games can really work. And yeah, I just want to see more of it. And I think we will. It needs to happen more than anything, right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, like the experimental side of it. There's a multi-pronged benefit factor when you start making games shorter, and you can get these things out in a faster pace, in that you can try a lot more ideas. And for all the ways the video games always constantly change, the one constant is things change. So there will be a new idea that eventually does break through and causes a new wave, a new sensation, a new, a massive growth spike in video games. And you don't get there by sitting back and being super risk adverse. And you probably don't get there even by taking giant, massive, risky bets that are going to take you 10 years to complete, to actually get to market. You probably get there by letting some creative people spin their wheels very fast and fail fast and all that traditional stuff. I think the industry does slowly come to that realization. Feels like they are, at least in many markets. Whether or not the EAs of the world are going to be able to see that, who knows? And they have their own ways of growing by putting Ultimate Team in one or two more games or something like that, and they'll keep trying that for now. But eventually, even they will have to try something new, I think. All right, let's keep moving here. Elden Ring Nightreign launches on the 30th of May. This is from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. The standalone Elden Ring spinoff, Nightreign, has a release date, First revealed at the Game Awards, Elden Ring Nightreign will be ready for release on the 30th of May. Not too long at all from now. That's pretty exciting. The game features 3-player co-op or solo play, no 2-player, weirdly, as you try to take down one of 8 Lords of Night, featuring a more fast-paced style of gameplay that focuses on combat. You won't need to build a character, as you'll choose from 8 classes. One of the playable classes, Wilder, features on the game's collector's edition and a 25-centimeter statue. They got a whole bunch of stuff. There's a pre-order video that went out, basically showing off all this stuff. The base game is £35 here, according to Game Reactor. I wonder, it's probably around the same in terms of dollars, 35 to 40. Hey, I'm pretty excited about this. This is, I think, an example of a company figuring out a way to do this right. They've taken a massive game. It was their longest time spent on a game, I think, ever, from Soft making Elden Ring. Then they immediately took those assets and really built a ton of new stuff to make Shadow of the Erdtree, which was a giant game inside of another game as an expansion. And now they have an expand alone here, reusing a lot of assets. And I don't think anyone's going to be complaining for the most part. I think people are like, yeah, give us more stuff, remix your own material. It has worked for a lot of other franchises. Yakuza is something that has done that over and over again and has really benefited from it. This is kind of a blueprint, right? In some ways, it's probably not going to do as well as Elden Ring, but it doesn't need to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a fun experiment, like we were talking about earlier, one that does kind of pick and choose a lot of things that has worked for From in the past, like, the fast combat in the Sekiro and also Bloodborne games, the co-op PvE that it does so well, the boss progression, and it seems like a smaller, more digestible experience. And if it can successfully combine that like aggressive combat that we saw in like Sekiro with a co-op depth of something like Destiny or whatever, then it does have the potential to be something awesome. And like one thing that really stood out to me, Jeff, was like that you don't create your own character. Like Elden Ring and Dark Souls have those like deep character building, and it's like such a big part of it. Exactly. But Nightreign seems to be focusing on these predetermined classes, and that could make combat almost feel a bit more balanced and specific. kind of like how Sekiro had that like single well-tuned play style. So if they execute on it well, which they haven't failed to do in the past, I think this could be pretty cool. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I can't wait to jump in myself.
Yeah, I think making be like, hey, we do have that game if you want to go build your character and explore a world and all that stuff. It's called Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree, and they're massive, and you probably haven't fully explored that. And even if you have, there's new ways to do that with new builds of characters, and it can feel completely fresh. Let's try some different stuff here. Yeah, I think this game's going to be pretty massive. I think, kind of enabling people to quickly get in and experience FromSoft boss fights and combat and different kinds of characters and likely different weapons, almost maybe Monster Hunter in how you approach selecting your characters. I think that's really going to work for a lot of people, and having the sort of roguelite elements in there as well. I mean, boy, that sounds very enticing to me. So that the Nightreign playtest codes have started going out. I'm going to try to get in this myself. Looking forward to it. But May 30th, we did not know about this game before December. And then they announced it out of nowhere, and it's going to be out within 6 months. Very, very exciting, and kind of just impressive to see FromSoft be able to like, oh, we got this nailed down now. And very similar to just the way a lot of these Japanese publishers have been able to figure out how to get the most out of every game they're making. So I think it's very impressive overall. All right, let's shift over here to Crysis 4, which is on hold, and its director has left as Crytek says it is laying off 15% of its staff. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Crytek has announced that Crysis 4 is on hold as it plans to lay off 15% of its staff, which is around 60 people, to stay quote, financially sustainable. In a statement posted on its official Twitter account, the company said the layoffs were necessary because of the current state of the industry. Like so many of our peers, we aren't immune to the complex, unfavorable market dynamics that have hit our industry these past several years, it wrote. It pains us greatly to share today that we must lay off an estimated 15% of our around 40 employees. The layoffs affect development teams and shared services. This has not been an easy decision to make, as we deeply appreciate the hard work of our talented teams. Crytek's announcement also revealed that it decided during Q3 last year to put development of Crysis 4 on hold, and that it has been trying to shift developers over to Hunt Showdown 1896. Crytek's definitely one of these studios that has been I don't know, it seems a little bit lost for quite some time. Has been trying to find its way back on to making a lot of money and making a lot of successful games and projects. I think CryEngine sort of being mostly deprecated by the industry over the years has not helped. And then they have had some success with games like Hunt Showdown. And I think that they're they also haven't fully figured out how to capitalize or expand that and introduce it to a new audience. And that seems to be their focus with this move right here. But for as much as we talk about, hey, it's, labor a little bit more affordable in Europe, and you can do a lot more over there, and that's worked for companies making stuff like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's not like they're immune, as they're saying here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure exactly how it went down with Crytek, but it's a story you see time and time again, not just in the States, but here in Europe as well. Again, they might have overextended themselves after the pandemic.
Sure, everyone did.
And I'm not just... Yeah, exactly. I don't want to single them out. Everybody did. And he even said right in that press release, oh yeah, everybody else in the industry is doing it. So you do get those chain reaction layoffs. It happened intensely last year. I think Take-Two may have done it first. And then it was just constant chain reaction. Every week you'd hear layoffs galore. But it is just PR spun excuses, difficult macroeconomic times and things like that. But it is the executives that made those decisions, and they're not the ones getting laid off, right?
No.
Layoffs are a failure of leadership. And that, I respect, again, coming back to Nintendo, what Iwata did after the Wii U bombed, right? He took a pay cut. And if these companies really did believe in the vision, and these executives really did believe in the vision, maybe they would do the same. Just saying. Yep.
And I get that's, in Japan, that's a little bit more cultural, and there's even some labor laws that kind of encouraged him to do that. But so what? It clearly was the right move. And, the things he said about it at the time, again, even if it was forced by some other thing, which I don't think we fully know, he said the right things. We need people to make joyful games, and who can make joyful games if they're worried about losing their job? And I think, boy, that just comes through in every single news story we talk about with this industry right now. It's why we always end up kind of having the same conversation over and over, is because it taints everything. And everyone's worried about losing their job. And kind of hard to focus on the joy when that's the case. Crytek, has been a pretty big company for a long time. They had that deal with Amazon to provide them the CryEngine for Lumber Mill, I think is what they called it. I don't know if that's still a going concern. I guess I probably doubt that. But it's not like, no one uses the engine. But I think the idea was this is going to be something that competes with Unity, Unreal, and that never happened. The industry kind of does this, though, right? Where it settles on a technology over time. And there's probably not a lot of space for like the third wheel. And in this case, that was CryEngine.
Yeah, exactly. And like, especially over the past few years, we've just seen everybody recalibrating towards Unity, towards UE, because like proprietary engines, they're so expensive. They're so hard to kind of keep up on. I mean, Gorilla has Decima, which is kind of one of the last ones standing. But even that, right? Like, and we see like Halo, even like 343 shifting towards UE. So yeah, like it's the same across all tech, right? Usually it just like settles on one or two, and CryEngine is like quite hard to use as well. And there was the same when Amazon adapted it for their lumber yard.
Lumber yard, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, maybe I forget as well, Jeff. So we'll have to fact check us on that, chat. But yeah, even that was really, really difficult to use, and like it was just constant. Like, and as well, like EA with Frostbite, right? It's just so hard to use. You can't like take a FIFA engine and make like a Battlefield engine and just like apply it to everywhere. Like there needs to be some kind of uniformity in that, because otherwise, like when you are hiring other devs from other companies, they have to relearn the engine, and it's again wasted resources, especially in the States where these devs like earn six-figure salaries. It does really contribute to the budget bloat that we see, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think sharing technology and then sharing understanding of technology as you move from one studio to the other, as you pointed out, hugely crucial, to the point where even Nintendo uses Unreal Engine on a ton of their games now, because it's just the path of least resistance a lot of times. And that's how these things shake out, is eventually someone decides, wait, why are we doing it this way? We can do it this way and save money. And that kind of always wins out over time. As you pointed out, that doesn't mean there aren't still bespoke engines out there. There definitely are, and there's reasons to do that, but fewer and fewer reasons as time goes on. All right, we got plenty more to talk about, but we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, let's talk about that state of play that's happening later today and kind of set expectation levels as best as we can. We'll do that right after this.
Nice.
All right. Right back into it. Here we are. That state of play is later today. I believe it's 5 p.m. Eastern. That would be 2 p.m. Pacific. Chat, remind me if that's wrong. We'll correct that here in a second. But I'm pretty sure that's right. Anyway, what are you expecting? The state of plays have traditionally mostly been, hey, they felt obligatory. They felt like Sony needs to get some partner games in there, and then occasionally they have one of their own big things to talk about. Where do you set your expectation levels for state of plays generally?
Usually pretty low, because when Sony PlayStation has a lot to talk about, they usually do one of those PlayStation Experience events, right? Yeah, the showcase, that's the one. Yeah, like they're the big hitters. And yeah, it's really hit or miss with the state of plays. So I'm keeping my expectations tempered. I think we'll probably see, Death Stranding 2, hopefully another look at Ghost of Yotei, probably Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, but I'm expecting to see a lot of like partner games as well, because usually when they've got big things to show, the press releases are usually a little bit more like high octane, high energy, and this one seemed pretty flat.
Yep.
And another thing as well is like Sony's financials are tomorrow. So like it seems like they're just trying to either they're trying to sneak this out the day before so they can talk more about these games in the call with the analysts. Or maybe it's just so poor that they're just trying to get it out the door, so that it doesn't affect the stock too much. It could go either way, but yeah, I'm keeping my expectations pretty low. But I'm happy to be surprised. We'll see.
Yep, same. And it's like I don't go seeking out, hey, what's actually going to be in these things beat by beat these days. It's going to happen. We'll get all the answers here pretty soon, but I still hear some stuff. And from at least one person's perspective, it's they're telling me it's like hard to imagine Sony being able to line up a lot of what it has been working on with this state of play right now. Just a lot of stuff's not exactly right. For example, like Marathon probably does have its own thing later this year instead of showing up here. Fair Games even might not be ready for this year, so they might not want to talk about it again until later. And then even God of War. There's God of War stuff happening for sure, and that could get teased here. It really could. But there's also that 20th anniversary for that game coming up here pretty soon, so maybe they're going to wait until they're closer to that. But some of this stuff is just speculation. Some of it is okay. When we kind of look at things, it's hard to imagine that they're going to have a lot to talk about from first-party Sony. That said, Death Stranding 2 definitely. A lot of the stuff that's coming up very soon, like Death Stranding 2 is probably out before people are even thinking. We probably do get that release date here, and it's like very soon. And I think that's the kind of thing they'll focus on, because they do have some games coming up in the immediate future, and then a lot of third parties will have stuff ready to talk about. And I think that's where the big stuff could come from. If Resident Evil 9 shows up in this thing, I think most people would be like, that was a good state of play, and I think they'll be right. People keep wondering about the Nintendo Direct as well, if there's going to be one in February. I keep hearing that there will be one. So I think, whether or not that's a Direct or something much smaller, like a mini Direct, or I don't know. I suppose it could just be a series of announcements on Twitter, but basically people they're supposed to have something later this month. So and that would be focused on the Switch One. These companies still have to talk to consumers, still have to get them excited, right? So these kind of communications from the companies will keep happening.
Yeah, and there are still a few games left for the Switch One as well that they really do need to market, that we haven't got concrete release dates on. So, and I think even recently Nintendo said these games are coming out still for the Switch One. So they probably need a little marketing push for them ahead of the April showcase for the Switch 2, because the Switch 2 is coming in April, but Nintendo's still got its Q1 to make revenues, impress investors, keep Switch 1 owners happy. So yeah, they'll have to do something. So I'm kind of with you there, Jeff. They'll probably sneak one out.
Yeah. Just getting back to the state of play, there's some news stories and rumors about stuff that might show up there, or at least stuff that lines up circumstantially. Xbox game Hellblade 2 might be out for PS5 very soon. This is from Liam Croft at Push Square. While it's not yet been announced as one of the PS5 ports Microsoft currently has in the works, it has been claimed that Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 could be launching on Sony's current-gen console pretty soon. Windows Central scribe Jez Corden responded to a tweet earlier today about the State of Play live stream set for Wednesday, suggesting Hellblade 2 time maybe. In a follow-up post, he then claimed it's a case of when, not if, the PS5 version happens, and that when is pretty soon from what I've been hearing. Switch 2 announcement leaker Nate Drake also got in on the action with the original post, suggesting Hellblade 2 will be out on PS5 soon, very soon. This feels like one that could even shadow drop at this thing. Microsoft clearly has brought down the wall. Everything feels like it's coming to PlayStation 5. It's going everywhere that they can put it out. They could have a lot of games in this state of play, honestly. They could have this and Forza and a handful of other things. Do you think they're navigating this well, or does that even matter?
Is that Xbox, you mean?
Xbox, yeah. Do you think Xbox is navigating this transition from a lot of exclusive Xbox games to all those games are now coming to PlayStation 5 in a way that is truthfully growing their business?
Yeah, I mean, it will grow their business, right? You put in things like Master Chief Collection and Gears on PlayStation for the first time will be an explosion, right? Similar to how when PlayStation started putting its games on PC,
right?
That was a novelty at first, right? Horizon Zero Dawn, even Days Gone sold gangbusters on PC. Yeah, exactly. So the novelty of seeing those Xbox games on PlayStation, Forza is going to be a huge one. Halo, Gears, it's meaningfully going to grow Microsoft's revenues. And we know that Game Pass has kind of maximized its growth on console. PC, there's still some room, but even, it's been shown PC gamers love Steam. They're not going to move off Steam. They're happy to buy a game on Steam rather than get it for free in quotes on Game Pass. So, Phil is under a lot of pressure from Satya, the head honcho of Microsoft, to kind of deliver and like make revenues, because those revenues aren't coming from the big subscription strategy. And they need to come from somewhere, which is where this whole strategy is coming from, right? Like Phil Spencer needs to show revenue growth, and that is what they will see with these moves, right? I think Switch 2 will probably see Master Chief Collection and stuff as well. It's going to happen, and that's part of their move to PC as well, right? And their Series S, they have to make like multiple SKUs of these Xbox games.
Yep.
Also for the portable, so it'll just be so easy to put them everywhere and anywhere, which is, I think it's just the right move for Xbox. But it's going to be a tough journey, because obviously they're pissing off a lot of like current Xbox fans along the way. But ultimately, like, that is just the way the current is going, and yeah, they're collateral damage, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it does. You feel like, it does speak to that conversation we had earlier. The billionaire owners of all these things have made bigger bets than can be really justified by the market as it stands right now. And so they have to grow and expand. And a lot of that stuff looks, questionable. But a lot of it is like, let's just let more people play these games we already made. And when you say it like that, it's very difficult to argue against it. You made a product. You could put it somewhere else so that more people could buy that product. What is the possible argument against that? And the argument and traditionally would have been, well, you want to encourage people to buy your console because there's knock-on effects there. That you get 30% cut when people buy other software on there, and you have the digital ecosystem, and there's all these benefits, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, now I think we're at a point where even that way of thinking is too small for, hey, well, what if Call of Duty was everywhere? What if Minecraft was everywhere? And what if all the other stuff we made were in as many places as Call of Duty and Minecraft? And it's like that actually outstrips the 30% cut we get from, EA games on our platform. So, I think that they see I think they are thinking very long term, Microsoft. And so any sort of current rockiness of like people accepting or not accepting this, they don't even feel that anymore, because it's like they are trying to get to a future where things are very different. And that starts with maybe like, stuff like Hellblade 2 popping off on the State of Play today and immediately available on PS5. I could easily see that happen. Meanwhile, getting back over to Sony-owned stuff, Gummy Bears, Bungie's MOBA Smash Brothers project, could appear today at State of Play. I think this is the mobile game. This is from Albert Garrido at Game Reactor. It's been just over a month since we first heard about the MOBA project being developed at Bungie called Gummy Bears. While the bulk of the team was busy polishing and adding content for Destiny 2, The Final Shape, around 40 developers split off from the main studio to focus on this Super Smash Brothers inspired project, with a percentage-based health system rather than health bars. Let's see, details have been scarce so far, but now it looks like we're going to get plenty of them, as the Game Post, the same source that first revealed the project, claims that we could see it unveiled today at the State of Play. Gummy Bears is, according to the leaks we have, a MOBA project aimed at a younger audience than Bungie is used to, and perhaps that's also why it's been rumored by sources close to Vandal that they're also preparing its announcement for a hypothetical Nintendo Direct this month and subsequent release on Nintendo Switch 2, although the latter part has been taken with a grain of salt. Honestly, I believe that one. That one actually lines up pretty well with kind of some stuff I'm hearing. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think mostly, Rhys, my question to you about this would be like, can you see how a company like Bungie gets to end up making a game like this?
Yeah, I can see it, especially Bungie that's under PlayStation. I mean, yes, like Bungie does have its own identity and kind of can do its own thing.
For a while,
but like
that's shifting, yeah.
Yeah, that is shifting for sure, which is kind of like what I'm getting at here. And we see PlayStation kind of pushing more towards that family-friendly arena, kind of similar to Nintendo, obviously on a much smaller scale. They had the Lego Horizon. Astrobot is a lot more family-friendly. This is a lot more family-friendly. And again, it's like console revenues are kind of getting maximized, right? So PlayStation and Bungie under PlayStation, and also, PC companies are looking to kind of grow the pie via new demographics. And Nintendo has mostly kind of cornered that, right? I mean, there's the Lego games, there are like other games based on kids' properties, but a lot of those are on mobile. So there is kind of room for it. I mean, Lego Horizon was a mismatch, I think. Like the Horizon IP, I think like Herman Holst, it's his baby, so he's just trying to like put it everywhere. And like I think people don't necessarily care about Aloy's story that much. Like the world is cool, but yeah, I mean, I digress on that one. But like, I mean, there is room for a family-friendly MOBA. Like Pokemon Unite didn't quite hit, so you know that is a bit of an issue. But like, I think it would have to be on mobile, console, and PC. I think not just like mobile and console, because these games, they really need to like grow their total addressable market, right? They can't just be in one place. So I don't know. I'm worried. Like the marketing is going to be really important, and the MOBA space is pretty dominated by League. So if Pokemon couldn't do it, like can a new IP? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing for sure. I mean, I think this thing being everywhere seems very likely. Bungie kind of made that a point early on when they got acquired by Sony, saying, hey, we are still going to be free to do our own thing. And that means our games get released everywhere, which is why Marathon is coming to Xbox. And that was kind of a big point back then. So it's like if Marathon comes to Xbox, clearly this game can go to Switch and Xbox and mobile and PC and PlayStation and everywhere. And that's, you need to be everywhere, especially for a game for a younger audience where they just do not have that same concept of walled gardens and they don't care. They don't notice that stuff. Roblox is everywhere as it should be, right? It just should be everywhere. I can get Netflix on anything. Why wouldn't I be able to get Roblox? And so why wouldn't I be able to get your game everywhere? And so, yeah, I think they will take that approach. I think the question is, or sort of the challenge is, as you put it, like, can a new IP, something that is kind of doesn't have a lot of attachments to stuff that people already care about, get the attention it needs to survive and thrive? You know, it's possible. We'll have to just kind of wait and see. And a lot of it will depend on, is it very good? And then if it's very good, maybe it kind of just makes its own way at a certain point. Either way, interested to see it. But I do think this is the kind of thing, yeah, that sounds like that'd be in the state of play. And if it's games like that, I think people will kind of come away, the traditional audience for State of Play, come away relatively disappointed because they won't have any interest in this. Because they, you know, if they wanted to play a MOBA, they'd be playing a MOBA.
Yeah, true. Sorry, quick tangent. Like, you just got me thinking. Like, every single game that we see from PlayStation, Xbox, PC developers, even, they all say they're coming to Switch 2 or imply they're coming to Switch 2. So Switch 2 is going to be the first console ever that plays PlayStation games, Xbox games, traditionally PC games, if that mouse functionality is to be believed, which I think it is. And also, and that's the kicker, Nintendo games, right? Like, it's going to be the device that plays all of them. And like, this wasn't a strategy Nintendo sought out. Everybody just coming to it, like, because of the success of the Switch. So the Switch 2 might be like the all-in-one console and PC, like Steam Deck like style device that just does it all. And like, this isn't a narrative I've really seen talked about much, but like, this could be big for Nintendo. It's the everything console, right? Yeah. Like if the stars align, like this. Sorry, it just got me thinking.
No,
it's crazy.
It's good. And it's like, yeah, like the next real big Horizon game, they're not going to release that on Switch 2, but some PlayStation games will indeed find their way, and you know, some already have, to Switch. More will. And it will be stuff like the stuff from Bungie for sure. But yeah, the fact that you know, at a certain point, the Switch 2 feels like the indispensable one, and everything else is okay. Well, what else do you get in addition to the Switch 2? And I know everyone listening's not going to feel that way, but it's a lot of people will, and I think a lot of people, like a lot of families, be like, well, of course we get the Switch 2. And then what else do we get, or do we get anything else after that? I think that will continue to be the way that many of them think, and that's why Mario Party will continue to sell better than anything on the Xbox and almost anything on the PlayStation.
Yeah,
that's just the truth. All right, a handful more stories here. Control 2 enters full production as Alan Wake 2 has finally recouped development costs. This is from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. Finnish game developer Remedy has released its latest earnings report, and included in the filing are some key updates for the developer's upcoming games. Perhaps the two biggest takeaways are the confirmation that Control 2 has now entered full production, while Alan Wake 2 has fully recouped its development cost after selling 2 million copies. In its filing, Remedy said Control 2 entered full production in February 2025. The project has verified the velocity of asset creation, established production pipelines, and is ready for scaling up for production, the developer said. Entering the full production phase is a significant milestone for any project. In fact, you can't release a game until you do that. Another high-profile game, CD Projekt Red's The Witcher 4, entered the full production phase of development at the end of last year. As announced previously, Annapurna is funding 50% of Control 2's budget and co-funding the game as part of a deal that will see Annapurna help bring Remedy's Control and Alan Wake franchises to film and TV. The Chinese gaming giant Tencent is also an investor in Remedy and its upcoming projects. Remedy continues to be one of these studios that somehow makes it work, has a ton of projects going at any one time, doesn't feel like it always gets the best deals, but gets deals to get more stuff done. I say that because the Epic deal paid for Alan Wake 2, and that's great. But it also made it so that game did Alan Wake 2 ever come to Steam? I don't know if it ever did, because I think Epic published it, and that's the deal you have to make. And not being on Steam is going to hurt any game. Period. Just across the board, you're not on Steam, especially if you're on PC somewhere else. You will just be hurt by that. That's why it took it so long for this game, or one of the reasons it took this game so long to recoup its development costs. And I think. They didn't make that same deal again. I think a lot of that is because Epic is not as interested in making those kinds of deals anymore. It hasn't really helped them grow the Epic Game Store, but whatever the reason was, they're doing a different deal this time. And this one feels like maybe a little bit of a better fit. Get a company that wants to do the kinds of things you want to do, but you can't do, which is make the television and movies, which clearly, of course, Remedy very interested in doing. They put that kind of stuff in their games all the time. Is Remedy a company that feels like, hey, they think creatively both in how they make games and how they approach the business of getting those games made?
Yeah, absolutely. They're some of the, in my opinion anyway, the best storytellers in games. They leverage kind of the best of TV and the best of games and make it so that these experiences are like you cannot get anywhere else. And I think like the Epic deal was probably a net positive, right? Like they probably wouldn't have been able to make Alan Wake 2 without Epic. It sucks that it's not on Steam because it would have sold gangbusters on Steam because like it looks amazing. It like had I think it had path tracing, I forget.
Yeah, it's got everything, yeah.
Yeah, it had everything. So that, the PC crazies would have gone nuts for that on Steam. So they kind of missed out there, but again, it probably wouldn't exist without Epic. So I'm glad they're starting to make their royalties on it now as well, so they get kind of a bit more cash in their own coffers, which can like help them be a little bit more independent in the future and not be beholden to your Epics and things like that. But I do worry that they have quite a lot of irons in the fire. Like they're kind of, in my eyes, best when they're a one game studio and they just have the time and resources to like pour all their effort into that because they're quite auteur driven as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody contributes to the game, of course, but like I hope they don't spread themselves too thin because this is something that has like destroyed some of the best like game developers ever over time. So yeah, I'm excited for them and I'm really happy for the success that they've had, but I just hope that they can focus on what they do and what they do well.
Yeah, I think clearly they worked on that. God, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name. Crossfire X, that's what it was. Crossfire X. They did the campaign for that, like the work for hire stuff. And they were doing that alongside like 4 of their own projects, and right now they have at least 4 going, maybe 5, I think. A ton of stuff. And I just think part of that is they want to have a lot of irons in the fire because they want to keep everyone working on something and have a lot of chances for success. But I think at the same time, you're right. If they could just focus on one game at a time, that probably would be ideal for getting the best game out. And of course, it would. You say it, of course, that would be the case. But maybe they just don't have the choice to do that. So hopefully they're able to divvy up, the division of labor as best they can, and hopefully all that income can justify making bigger and better games, which just seems like they're figuring out. I think Control 2 is going to be probably their best received game yet. That's my prediction right now. I think it's going to be a big breakout for them, and I bet it also comes out to Steam. All right. Nintendo could have been bought by this unexpected company, Activision founder says. This is from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. Rhys, I saw this headline and I was trying to guess what it could be, and I didn't guess it, but when I saw it, I'm like, okay, that one actually makes sense when you think about it. According to Activision founder Bobby Kotick, and I guess I should stop there, he did this podcast and he did an interview, and he's saying a lot of stuff in there, and I think I'm at a point where I don't believe most of it. And I don't think he's lying. I just think he misremembering or wasn't fully like engaged in a lot of these conversations in the way that he presents it. Like, for example, this one is about like having lunch with Charlie Munger of Berkshire Hathaway, who he said considered buying Nintendo at one point. Kotick said on the Grit podcast that Munger was not a fan of video games, but saw an opportunity to potentially make a bid for Nintendo. Munger is said to have floated the idea of spending some of Berkshire's immense holdings on making moves in the video game space. One of Munger's ideas, apparently, was to buy Nintendo. Now, I'm sure that sounds crazy to a lot of people. Berkshire Hathaway is a long-term investment firm that has made most of its money by investing in big-name brands. Like, they have been like one of the longest shareholders in Coca-Cola, for example. So them seeing the Coca-Cola video games, Nintendo, and being like, we should get in on that business, I think they definitely actually probably did consider this. This, of course, didn't come to pass. In fact, Charlie Munger ended up making a big investment in Activision leading up to the Microsoft acquisition. And that's where they kind of made their big splash in gaming at this point. But can you imagine a world where Berkshire Hathaway owned Nintendo?
Sounds hellish. Yes. No, thank you. No. Yep. I mean, maybe this was during the Wii U days, right? When things weren't looking good for Nintendo and they needed a get out of jail free card. But luckily that ended up being the Switch. You know, I'm just speculating here. But I mean, I've met Bobby. He's like full of shit, honestly. So just like, I would take anything that man says with a pinch of salt. He's obviously a bit pouty after what happened after being bought by Microsoft, and he's just yapping on this VC podcast, and VCs suck. They're bad for this industry. So, you know, they probably had a couple of whiskeys and they're probably just, you know, being like billionaires are. And yeah.
Yep.
I would take it all with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, and I think the whole point of this story that he told is I would have lunch with Charlie Munger, which, you know, is the kind of thing that he thinks would impress the people he wants to impress. And
yes,
you know, Charlie Munger, I think, was actually a no bullshit guy. I bet he didn't have too many lunches with Bobby Kotick after that first one. I bet it wasn't. I bet they weren't repeat friends after that. That would be my guess. All right. That does it for the headlines. I got a poll question coming up. Let me get that set up for everybody. It is over here. I'm make sure I don't hit the, I lost it there. Actually, okay. While I get that set up, Rhys Elliot, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, tell them where they can find the research, all that good stuff.
Sure. You can find me on Blue Sky. That's usually where I do my consumery stuff. I'm Super Rhys on there. If you want more of the business style stuff, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search up Rhys Elliot. You can find all our reports on the Media Research blog, which is mediaresearch.com/blog. And tomorrow we're going to be publishing a nice deep dive on PlayStation's revenue. So if you want to hear more about the B2B side of that, come and check it out. If this sounds boring, I don't blame you. Just keep watching Giant Bomb.
Yeah, we'll get it all on here and make it as palatable as possible, of course. I love it, Rhys, though. You keep up the good work. I appreciate it. All right, Thanks. Here we go. Thank you for that. Got the polls ready now. This one from late last week because I was sick on Monday, so let's do this one now. Take-Two said GTA 6 is coming this fall. Do you think it will hit that launch window? Boy, I am really 50-50 on this, but I'm going to continue to say no. I think it comes out early 2026. And 56% of people agree with me. 44% still think it will come out this fall, which I think completely fair. They have had a long time to work on this game, and I think that's the thinking of most people. Where do you land on this, Rhys?
I think I'm like, just to give a rough estimate, 60% sure it's going to come out this year. Yeah. They seem pretty confident.
They seem very confident now.
Yeah, Strauss Zelnick was out there saying he's pretty confident that it's coming out this year. But we know game development is tough. Like something could slip at the last moment. They could find something that means they need to push it. But luckily at Media, we also have like a case of our forecast if GTA does slip till 2026. So it's like something we've been thinking about as well, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come out this year, like 60% sure. I'm kind of aligned with you in the community on that one.
Yeah, and I think the reason that of course, they're confident and they want to get it out this year. The reason it's easier to be like, this thing could slip is they could push it to the early part of next year. It would still be in this fiscal year, which that is really what's going to matter to them. So I think they if there's any one thing that could be like, okay, well, if we just did that, save a little bit more of our face when we launch this game, they have that opportunity to take that time and put it out in March, and it would still count for this fiscal year, and I think they'd be happy to do that. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
see. Of course, this holiday would be the ideal time to launch it. All right.
Yeah, they do have Borderlands. They do have Borderlands 4 this year as well. Yeah. So even if GTA slips, somehow those Borderlands games sell tens of millions of copies.
Yeah, Civ 7's going to be doing really well for them all year.
Absolutely, and they've got the NBA game obviously as well. Yep. That's always a revenue generator for them. So it wouldn't be the end of the world for the company. But that's right. Yeah, like you said, they want to get it out before the end of March.
All right. There was another poll question. This one's from yesterday. Are you okay? And let's see. I'm going to vote. I'm going to put yes. I'm doing better. I got over being sick. I'm taking care of myself a little bit better. I think that's helped. So, considering everything, yes. 36% of people agreed with me and say they're also doing okay. 64% said no. Rough times, Rhys. Rough times out there for people.
It is. Yeah, especially over in the States there. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
It's just everywhere you look, it's hell. But oh well, I'm doing okay, all things considered. All right, we got that done. We talked about Rhys and where people can find you. That's fantastic. All right, I think that's going to do it. Let me talk about what's happening on Giant Bomb. Unfortunately, it is Wednesday, which means Blight Club is back, and it's unfortunate because it's my turn again. My turn once again to go into the Blight Club mines and play whatever game it is that Dan Reichert and Mike Minotti have sent me. I'm sure that even for Blight Club, it's terrible because they are not good at picking my games, is what we've discovered over time. So that's my expectation. It's an N64 game. I know that. We'll get it booted up. I'll get booted and suited because they've also sent me some gimmicks to get dressed up in, and we'll figure out what that game's going to be together. And this is the start of the Blighting round. So the idea is something shorter, which is, we'll see how short everything ends up actually being, because some of these games I know that we've picked for Dan and Mike as well, Rhys, they could be kind of confusing. And I think for as much as they're supposed to be shorter games, I think we're all going to get lost in all this bullshit, and it's going to take longer than we're expecting, which is fine. I'm looking forward to it. That is going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern today, everybody. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. Right after that, we will hop into the State of Play talkover. We'll do that today as well. And then, look forward to Voicemail Dump Truck tomorrow, and UPF on Friday. We'll have a BCR on Friday where we're going to talk about Avowed. By then the embargo will be up. We've been playing it. We'll talk about that then. And we're also going to have Nathan Grayson on that episode to talk about his new book about Twitch that's coming out very soon. I think his book's coming out next week. We'll have a conversation with him about that. So plenty to do. And I think I might also play some Avowed on the website. I might do that tomorrow. We'll see. All right. Rhys Elliot, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talk about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, happy to do it anytime, man. Yep, always love watching the show, so it's an honor to be here, honestly, yeah.
Thank you so much for doing it. I think we will absolutely make it happen again. It was fantastic. Fantastic to have you all listening and watching. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. All right.